It's no secret that a certain small 2017 release left Star Wars fans in a bit of an interesting situation. Whatever your opinion is on this film, it's pretty undeniable that the film has strengths such as very visual storytelling, interesting directions for some characters, and a great soundtrack. The film made some very odd choices in storytelling as far as certain beloved characters' decisions goes, and just a general killer for a lot of people's theories and fun that they were having with the series. I don't care about Star Wars nearly as much as I once did after the release of that film, and I think that's a big part of the reason that I'm not very excited for this next film. I hope that it's good and I will see it, but I do wonder for the quality of the next film. That being said, this is not a review, as you've seen from the thumbnail, of Star Wars: The Last Jedi. This review is for what I think the sequel trilogy should have been, mostly based on, and that is Timothy Zahn's Star Wars: The Thrawn Trilogy. This is comprised of 3 books: Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and The Last Command. This review is not going to be a comprehensive, in-depth review and summary of each individual book. That being said, these books are tremendously fun. I listened to these books on Audible. The books are narrated by Mark Thompson, and he does a great job. He does really great imitations of these beloved characters' voices, and he just really livens up the narration. At this point, I have really tried getting into audiobooks as much as I can, just because my commutes to work, I get about 40 minutes of downtime every day that I would normally listen to music. I've tried replacing that with books so that I can read more, and so far it's worked pretty well. I read all 3 of these books through Audible, mostly while I was driving to and from work, and those are the main books that I was focusing on early in the year. Of course, they're not the only Star Wars books I've read. I've also read the first book in the Darth Bane trilogy, and I have other books that I'd like to talk more about in the coming weeks and months. That being said, Thrawn Trilogy. Timothy Zahn has a really easy to digest writing style. He kind of just presents the story to you as it is. There's not really any fancy, flowery language or anything like that. It's really designed to satisfy even the people who don't usually read a lot, but they're into Star Wars. So I would absolutely recommend this to anybody who is remotely into Star Wars, especially if The Last Jedi is a movie that didn't make you very happy. These books pick up several years after the second Death Star blows up in Return of the Jedi, and the Emperor's been killed at this point. Darth Vader is long gone. Luke, Leia, Han Solo, they're kind of all left picking up the pieces after all of this stuff goes down. The New Republic is being formed currently, and Luke, Han, and Leia are key in reforming this civilization after the Empire has been destroyed and all that infrastructure is just trashed. There's some political intrigue in this. There's a lot of action, and I really like that. It's really cool to see what happened to the characters after the original films. It really feels like this was written by a tremendous fan of the original movies. And from what I understand, this is one of the first, if not the first, extended universe Star Wars. Now Disney calls it Legends, but these books are really a great way to experience more Star Wars story and get more of that lore there. The caveat is that you really won't see much of it in the cinematic representations like the movies and the cartoons. I love the places they go with certain characters. They explore sides of Luke, Leia, and Han Solo that we didn't get to see in the movies, and I think that's really fun. We get to see an insane Jedi kind of gone bad, and that is just really interesting, and they play around with that idea a lot. There's new characters that are really interesting. Talon Karrde, Mara Jade, Thrawn. These are all really interesting new characters. And while I'm at it, Thrawn is probably the coolest literature villain I've encountered so far. He's so cool. I'll get to a problem I have in a hot minute here, but First, I just want to say Thrawn is a cold, calculating villain. I love Mark Thompson's voice that he does for Thrawn. Shout out to that Audible book again. The villain in these books, Thrawn, is just really well realized. He's smart. I almost find myself rooting for him sometimes just because he's so motivated, so smart. He's got a thing for art. I'm a poet and I didn't even know I was rhyming those words. So yeah, Thrawn, really cool. That being said, I should probably get into some of my more negative aspects of the series. When you're watching Star Wars, the bad guys can't really win. And that's good, obviously, because you don't want to have to explain to your 8-year-old kid why Luke Skywalker just got killed or Leia just got thrown out of a ship. Anyway, these books fall victim to plot armor. I do think the heroes, even if they're not nearly as smart as the villain characters, sometimes outsmart them in some unrealistic ways. Good guys always win is not always the most exciting route to go with your story. One other negative about these books, and it's kind of looking at the trilogy as a whole, I do think the second book kind of drags a little bit. Dark Force Rising, it builds an interesting mystery, and I would say it's the most mysterious plot of all three. However, along the way, I just feel like it tends to drag a little bit until we get to a final kind of battle. That being said, I do really enjoy the mystery, and I like some of the dialogue that's going on there. One huge strength with these books is that it's the extended universe. So this really expands on all of the interesting races, planets, characters that we've already seen, and it just builds new ones on top of that. There's an entire new race that's introduced that are on the, if I recall right, the planet Endor, where the Death Star was hovering over before it just blew up in Return of the Jedi. Those are a really interesting race. Timothy Zahn builds kind of a lore for them, and it's really interesting stuff. I don't want to go too far into it because I think that's kind of spoiler stuff, but it's really exciting and really interesting stuff. Also, like I said, the side characters and the villain that they introduce in this are just so cool. I think these characters, it's a crime that they're not in the Disney films. And it almost works out better this way because who knows how well Disney would adapt these characters to movies. However, I think if they had stuck to something more similar to Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, Last Command, Thrawn Trilogy, Disney might have had a more successful run for Last Jedi and for all of these sequel films.